For our outdoor kitchen plans, we had a number of things to consider. One of those included figuring out what we could build without having to apply for a permit. In our rural municipality, there are no permits needed for open-ended buildings of any size. To figure out the details, I decided to make a scale model first. We settled on a 20 by 20 foot site. In this model, 1 inch equals 2 feet. I've got thicker dowling cut to size to represent the main vertical supports. In real life, we won't be cutting points on the bottom, so that's just for the model. The trees we will be using will also be quite thick. We are looking to have the main vertical supports at 7 feet high plus 3 feet buried. To help preserve the wood, the bottom 3 to 4 feet will be charred first. Every tree trunk we use for these main vertical supports is going to be a different thickness, so squaring off the tops will help make them more consistent and make it easier to attach the other pieces. Here, the main vertical supports are in place with the squared tops aligned. The end with 4 vertical supports will be the main entry, which will have shed roofs on the sides, while the middle is open to the air. The back half will have a gable roof covering the entire area. The sides will have horizontal support beams that will extend beyond the main vertical support so that the eaves will extend another 2 feet, making for a total of 24 feet or 12 inches on the model. Here, the narrower doweling is marked to match the vertical supports they will sit on top of. Next, wood was shaved off to create recesses for the squared tops of the main vertical supports to fit into. The next horizontal beams will run from side to side. Here, the doweling has already been measured and cut, with recesses carved out to fit the interior vertical support posts. In real life, each of these measurements will have to be worked out individually to account for the different sizes and thicknesses of the raw timber we will be using. This is the full 20 by 20 foot space framed out. Above the entry will be open in the middle to accommodate smoke from the fire pit that will be there. There will be benches and other seating under the shed roof sections. The back of the structure will have the cooking areas. If all goes to plan, there will be a smokehouse, a cooking area with a firebox under it, and an earthen-style bread oven. The smoke from these will be directed to the smokehouse. There will also be an open grilling area. We are estimating the final length of this to be about 15 feet. The back of the timber frame structure will be walled in, and the sides will be partially walled in with openings to walk through near the middle. The next step in the model is to measure out diagonal supports for the horizontal beams. I went with 1 inch pieces cut at an angle, but again, in real life, these will be sized to fit each individual space. We will most likely use mortise and tenon joins to attach these. Considering the distance between the main vertical supports is not great, adding the diagonal supports may not actually be structurally necessary, but we do want this to last a long time. While working on the model, my notes were adjusted as we figured things out, which is why we decided to make the model in the first place. The next step was to create supports for the gable portion of the roof. This required 2 smaller vertical supports cut to 2 inches representing 4 feet. The beam that will support the peak of the roof, including overhang, will require 14 feet or a 7-inch piece of doweling in the model. The vertical supports were used to mark out where to shave wood off to create a flat surface to attach them to. Next, it was time to measure out and cut recesses in the horizontal roof beam to fit on top, then set everything aside to dry. It was a while before I could get back to this, as we cat-proofed our living room so I could finally work on a desk instead of on my bed. Once that roof beam was added, you can see an immediate problem in my model. For some reason, the inside vertical support is shorter than the one on the outside. This goes back to how, when we build this in real life, everything will need to be measured and cut individually to ensure things are properly level and straight. The next thing to figure out was the most efficient way to support the roof trusses so that the shed roof sections would be the same angle as the gable roof portion. I was hoping to avoid it, but in the end I concluded that we'd need 2 more 24-foot horizontal supports, the 12-inch dowels, and add smaller vertical supports positioned to match the main vertical posts of the entry. We plan to buy lumber for the roof trusses, but in our model I went with bamboo skewers. For the gable portion of the roof with overhang, I went with 6-inch pieces. I placed the outermost trusses for the gable portion of the roof in place so that I could get an idea of how long to cut the vertical supports. The new horizontal supports had their recesses carved out, and the horizontal cross beams already in place had matching areas shaved flat to support the shorter vertical supports. I ended up going with 1-inch vertical supports and glued them in place before finally fitting on the new horizontal beams. The roof trusses will be mounted every 2 feet, which was marked out every inch on the model. The dimensions on the model are wonky, but it gives us an idea of what we need to do when the final build finally happens. Last of all, the trusses were added. For the gable section of the roof, the pieces are 6 inches, with the shed roof pieces at 4.5 inches, representing 12 feet and 9 feet. The opening above the fire pit should end up being just a couple of feet wide. Cutting the shorter pieces for the roof left me with a bunch of skewer tips, so I pushed those into where the back wall will be. That wall is the only one that is intended to reach as high as the horizontal support beam above. As for the roof itself, we have decided we want to go with a metal roof, and will likely be purchasing that new rather than scavenging. Once the roof is in place, we will have the shelter we need to start building the cooking area. We are considering building it with stone, since we have so much of it around, but may also visit a salvage yard for bricks. Meanwhile, we would be able to set up a fire pit pretty much right away. We already do open fire cooking over our current fire pit. That fire pit has been in the same location for more than 50 years, and now has tree branches growing over it, so it's not as safe to use as it used to be. Along with the cooking areas, we will be building prep tables that can be moved to wherever they are needed, as well as building short walls between the outside vertical supports to help cut the wind, which is a major issue in the location we plan to build this in. The ultimate goal is to have a fully functional outdoor kitchen that will serve as a backup should we lose power, with enough shelter that it can be used in the winter as well. This is a major project. We have very few tools and supplies and virtually no budget. Still, a girl can dream, can't she?